Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to remind everybody about a real-life story of being outnumbered 10-1, a story of courage, will, discipline, suffering, immense sacrifice, and success, a tale of two great militaries, surprise, weather, overwhelming force, and sheer resolve. It is marked with the graves of thousands and exemplifies the struggle for the very future of freedom in our world. The story ends with the 101st Airborne and Patton's Armor being victorious in January and February of 1945. And I think it's important to recognize the accomplishments of all the units who struggled and suffered greatly under the German siege of a small town in Belgium named Bastogne. This January and the recent December marks the 70th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge. Most people know of the 101st Airborne, nicknamed the Battling Bastards of Bastogne, and the plight of Patton's Armor, as chronicled in so many stories and movies now burnished into the collective consciousness of our nation, and rightly so. However, Mr. Speaker, on this 70th anniversary, I want to remind us of an often untold story of the other heroes of the Battle of the Bulge and the little but critical town of Bastogne. It is a story of the American soldiers of the 28th Division from Pennsylvania who held at all costs. In late October to mid-November of 1944, the Battle of the Hurtgen Forest, described as the meat grinder, where the 28th Division was in a fierce battle with the German 73rd Corps. For the 28th, the battle losses were 248 officers, 5,452 enlisted men, and after the battle, the weary division needed a rest. The Ardennes Forest was thick and seemingly impenetrable. It was known as a quiet sector in which the 28th could re-equip, reorganize, and assimilate thousands of new replacements into the ranks while the division rested. Greatly weakened by the previous battle, the 28th Division was spread out over some 25 miles along a front which was more than double that which was recommended in standard practice by any division at the time. On the morning of 16 December 1944, the peace was shattered by the opening barrage of the German, opening up one of the largest displays of artillery bombardment ever, signaling the start of Hitler's last great offensive on the Western Front in World War II. For the next 4 days, without any sleep, often without food, elements of the 28th Division and their affiliates fought continuously, often to the last bullet and to life, to deny the enemy success. Exceptionally cold, foggy, damp, and of course snow-covered, exactly what Hitler had counted on, as the winter would only add to the element of surprise. The German 5th and 15th Panzer Armies, 6th SS and 7th Army attacked the U.S. 8th Army in a line between Aachen and Bastogne with a plan to go as close as possible down the seam between American, Canadian, and British forces to split them. After crossing the Meuse River, the attacking panzers were to turn north and capture the port city of Antwerp, thus collapsing the supply lines and the alliance. The timetable established by the German General Staff and German High Command called for the capture of the entire 28th Division sector early in the morning of 16 December and the capture of Bastogne by the same evening of that day. Bastogne was a major road junction which was needed by the Germans for armor and resupply units. In the early morning hours of 16 December, the 28th Division received a message telling them to hold at all cost. Keystoneers, as they were known, were dug in and began the slow and painful art of trading time for space, trading time and life for space. The 110th Regiment was soon surrounded and fought to the last round. From 05:30 that morning of the 16th until sometime late in the afternoon of the 18th and early on the 19th in some locations, men of the 110th Infantry Regiment fought and held, giving ground only when forced out, but all the while buying precious time for General Eisenhower to find and move reserves forward from deep inside France. The other two regimental combat teams of the division of the 109th and 112th Infantry Regiments did only slightly better. The 110th Regiment stayed in place as they were assigned the center of the center sector of the division. The regiment alone fought elements of 5 German divisions, of which it was outnumbered at times 7-1, and I must abbreviate due to time. Well, there are that come to mind when we think of the Battle of the Bulge, like the 101st Airborne Patton's Army or Easy Company from the Band of Brothers, please also remember the names and places familiar to those others who held at all costs. The 103rd, the 109th, 110th, 111th, 112th of the 28th. These are the echoes of the 28th Division and the men who held at all costs and traded space for time so that the 101st and Patton's 3rd Army can get into position in time to defeat the German offensive. Mr. Speaker, we could learn a lot from these dedicated soldiers who refused to surrender but fought for what they believed in. I just want to remind everyone and to offer my salute to these finest Americans. And I yield back.